few weeks after the show, I came down to India Tax practice and got an interview with them.
It's Ryan Hansen on drums.
And
Backing vocals. Just recently. So
yeah, as of
still
today.
working that into my
Toby Wandell, bass guitar.
Tanner Ashland and I play guitar and I sing. I want to say it was about 4 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You guys go back further than that.
Tanner and I started about middle of 2010, just jamming, nothing serious. He'd drive to Omaha and jamming at the house, and then one day we were like, oh, we should get a bassist. It was probably after about 6 months, 5 months of jamming together, 6 months. And we're like, we should probably find a bassist. It only took a couple months, and it was Toby.
This boy was out in California at the time too. Like Ryan said, we were thinking about finding a bassist. Like, well, who could we find? Did we try guys out in Omaha? And I thought, oh, my friend Toby. We'll just call him. And you're out in California and doing your thing out
Working
there.
temporarily, and they called me up and said they got a band going and some riffs that sounded kind of like Soylent Green, and thought I'd dig it. And I was like, hell yeah, let's check it out. And came back, and the rest is history.
I'd say heavy.
Heavy with some melodic tendencies. And we don't, we're not like a thrash, but we're definitely a heavy metal. How did you
Heavy
term it?
rock.
Heavy rock and alternative metal.
Yeah,
heavy rock, you know.
Kind of goes all over the spectrum because we all have different influences.
Right.
And what we've kind of come up with is, and from what we've told people, and even though our sound is kind of changing to more of a heavier style now, as of recently, we've always kind of said it's kind of like a mix between like an Alice in Chains and a Pantera. You know,
Black
a little
Sabbath.
Black Sabbath, yeah, definitely Black Sabbath. And a little bit of,
Older metal bands.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
even newer, ones that are still around today. Like
Deftones.
It's tremendous. I don't think it gets enough credit. There's talent everywhere in every genre. Like that you think of, like there's guys doing house music every night and doing it well and traveling out of the state. There's bands doing like the jam band style. You've got more reggae. You've got the funk. I mean, everything is here and everybody's really good at it.
I think even the comment on the different types of music in Omaha as well. We've played with bands that aren't even really kind of our style. They might be a completely different end of the spectrum when it comes to music style, but we played really good shows with them as well. So and that kind of goes back to even being in the Omaha music scene is everybody helps everybody.
Yeah, definitely getting heavier lately. Plan to record more as soon as we can afford it. It's always the only thing holding us back from recording a whole album is cash. All the money we make from shows goes into the band fund, which will go towards either recording or t-shirts and that kind of stuff. So.
It makes you have to work hard, and that's the overall thing. It's a lot. The work ethic is definitely high. You have to apply yourself to anything if you want to succeed. But yeah,
Expect very little in return.
Right.
You just gotta love playing music,
Well, that's the drive that keeps you going.
Yeah.
And altogether, I mean, in all honest terms, if you play in a cover band, those bands really, they make some pretty good money because they bring a lot of people out. Original music, it's a lot harder to make money that way, and in turn, kind of like Toby said, don't expect much in return. Not to sound, what's the word I want to look for? Not to sound depressing, a bad outlook on it, but it does take a lot of hard work, and we don't take money home. It's not like we make $1,000 a night, we put it in our pockets and go home. We make a certain amount and we put it right back into the band fund, and then we save it up and we go into the studio and record maybe one song, use the rest for t-shirts, something like that. So it really does take a lot of work altogether, but and that's part of being in a band and getting your name known around town. And even like Shamrock's here, we've been playing here for a couple of years and they really like us here. And we've gotten better. What's that?
Yeah, let us practice.
Yeah, they let us practice here. But you play better and better shows, and you get your name around town more, and that's really that's really how I guess things work.
Humble. Be humble, because you're gonna get humbled. You know, that's first and foremost. You know, but at the same time, you know, it's all also worthwhile. You know, because you put in that effort, and when it starts clicking, and people start asking you to come back to venues, and you know, it starts feeling rewarding, makes you want to keep going.
My advice, we practice a lot and be really picky about who you play with. Not just that you have the same vision musically, but that you really get along with the people that you're playing with too. Both of those things are super important.
I would basically say the same thing as both of those guys. And, you know, personally, you know, meet other people in the community, even play with other people, and because that will make you a better musician, and you will learn a lot of things along the way.
Don't be afraid to go to just random shows and check it out. And
Exactly.
you just get, I mean, as far as like, not like shaking everyone's hand, but you can just be a face there that's always showing up, and eventually that sticks. You know, because then you start seeing people who shake hands, find out who's in what band and things like that. You even talk to guys in those bands afterwards and say, hey, I love your stuff, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, it's a small enough town, your face sticks.
It's good
And
to
if
make
you're in the scene, you know,
Yeah.
that helps a lot too.
And it seems like most local shows, about half the crowd are musicians.
And that goes back to your last question about, you know, the scene. Is that we just love each other, you know, everyone's supporting everyone.
The traffic's coming back. Go out in an easy street. SUVs to the perfect. Grow a shake teeth. Never shelter from the sun. Oh, the appetite's back. Now I'm cold inside when I get back to the community of that. You can't afford to be generous. There's blood and cost and the narrow margin. You don't get bread. Take it out to love. You can work fast. It's gonna eat a lot.
I think we started the band recording at an old house that we lived in maybe 2008 or 9, where my roommate and I, Adam, just started messing around with an 8-track recording device. And then as that went on and we got better at recording and working with each other, we asked our friend Mitch to join, and we were a 3-piece, and then started playing shows in basements and friends' houses and things like that with the masks. And yeah, probably 2008. Mitch and I have been playing music ever since we started. He was a musician his whole life. His dad plays guitar and is a musician. But when I was 14, I changed high schools and met Mitch, and that's when we started playing like Tenacious D, cover band type things, just playing Tenacious D songs, and that's how I learned guitar. And Mitch had a big part in that too. So then we met Adam through some UNO friends. He knew some wrestlers, and I knew some wrestlers, and then just met through there and started playing music together. I would describe White Wolf T-shirt as a very diverse thing. It's more of like an idea than it is like a band, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the music comes from all around. Any type of inspiration we have that day, or week, or whichever, or whatever member brings whatever song to the table. Like someone will show up to our band rehearsal and say, "Hey, I wrote a new song this last weekend. You know, here it is," and we'll all kind of learn it. So it could be anything, and it is kind of everything. I have no idea. I think Adam had one. He had a White Wolf mask, I think for Halloween years and years ago. And during the shows, he would wear that. During our first live shows, he would wear a mask, and then Mitch and I would wear anything else, like ski goggles or a bandana over our face or something. But then we all decided that wolf masks would be pretty sweet for everybody to have. So. But it's hard to like, communicate and kind of get our cues. You know, we can't see each other's mouths moving, and you can't really hear when you're trying to say like, okay, the next song is this, or like stop, or do it again. You know, it's really got to use your body language, and it's pretty hard sometimes. I think that it's done better for me than I could have expected, and when I came to do shows and play shows, like turnout and people, I think that a lot of people really do go to shows around. You could do like the scene of like talent and musicians and things like that, and there's a lot of bands around, there's a lot of hip hop artists around, there's a lot of good talent around, and then but yeah, the show goers too, there's a lot of love and support from fans and stuff. I see a lot of committed fans to a lot of committed bands. We've definitely gotten better at the instruments. I've always been able to keep a beat, like with drums and guitar. Through this band, I've probably picked up keyboard and bass much better than I would have just on my own trying to learn. That was kind of the main thing when we asked the other members to join the band, was they could play at least two things, and they could, so they were just a great fit. So yeah, we did before, but still now learning more every time we practice. I'm in a band called Artillery Funk. I sing for them, and then I just started working with these guys in a Rage Against the Machine cover band called No Shelter, and that'll be this summer. We're just starting rehearsals for that, so this summer we'll be playing with them. Yeah. I'd say do it. Get a couple of songs that, I mean, if you have a couple of songs, get them out, and yeah, do it. I mean, I would say, you could say do like the open mic scene and go and do, you know, I've never done that. I'd love to, but yeah, just get out there and do it.
Sound.
I'm in a band now called the Filter Kings, and I play rhythm guitar and sing. Oh, I'd say the band's been together about 8 years. We all came from different kind of musical ventures in the past. I'd always come from rock bands and punk bands and stuff like that, and the band is kind of more of a country influenced band, which is what I grew up hearing, not really listening to, but hearing because my parents, they listened to a lot of country music when I was growing up. And so I revolted by doing the punk rock thing. But me and the bass player had kind of known each other a little bit. He played in rockabilly bands. And it really, I just kind of started doing acoustic songs. And then he was at a show and was like, hey, if you ever want to get together and do some songs and become something, let me know. And that's how the band kind of started. And the rest of the guys, the drummer was a metal drummer, played in metal bands and a lot of underground, kind of heavy type stuff. And the guitar player had always played in top 40 bands. And he was a drummer, actually. He wasn't a guitar player in any of them bands. He played drums. So, but he has a musical background, musical family, so he kind of knows a lot of different instruments. So. Super talented. A lot of talented people have come here from other places now, bringing a lot more diversity. You know, your indie scene itself, which has been burgeoning for quite a while. It's been around since, you know, the late 80s, you know, with Simon Joyner, and then even in the early 90s with what Connor was doing, you know. And I think they've done nothing but strengthen the scene. I was in a band, first band I was ever in was called the Love Junkies. I was in a band called Cactus Nerve Thing. I was in a band called Wood. I was in another band called Serial, and that was with members of Ritual Device, Cellophane Ceiling, who else? Bill Thornton, he was in, oh doggone it, not Pioneer Disaster, but with Gary Dean Davis, the guy that runs Speed Nebraska label. I'm just forgetting the name of it, but that was just kind of hodgepodge of a bunch of different people. Played in a band called Bad Luck Charm for a long time. So yeah, I've had quite the...
Yeah, a lot of...
I was in a band called the Coffin Killers for a while. Got to play with a lot of cool people. I learned how to play guitar when I was 19 years old. And I practiced every day for 6 months and got in a band. And I've been in a band ever since. I've never not been in a band since I was 19. A lot of times with songs, I suppose you get a melody in your head, and especially with that band, you get a melody and then you just kind of put the words together with that melody, the way the melody kind of, you know, in your mind, you kind of had a do, you know, and eventually if you have enough time thinking at work or wherever you're at, you eventually come along a series of words that kind of, I don't know, kind of have some kind of a meaning to something, you know, and then by the time, if you're lucky enough to have a pen and paper, you write that down, you know, and then the next line that you have, and then boom, you kind of have your premise for the idea. When you're writing country music, you got to tell a story by the end of it, you know, so once you have all you need is really a good chorus, you know, a couple of good lines to a good melody line, and you can kind of fill in the blanks from there. You know, I tend to write, half of it's from my experiences and half of it's from my friends or family or somebody I know from their life experiences. Because let's be honest, most of the most interesting things come from other people, you know?
Yeah.
So you just write about that. Stick with it, you know, stick with it and trust your intuition, you know. If it's what you really want to do, you know, you just, sometimes you'll play things or want to say things that, you know, maybe you're thinking, somebody else did that, maybe it was influenced, maybe it's too corny, maybe it's too this, too that. Don't think about that, don't worry about what anybody else does, because in the be-all, end-all, you're doing it for yourself. You know, you're not really. If other people like it, that's great. You know, and but for the most part, you're really just doing it for yourself. And so much of life in general, life is long. You know, especially if you make bad decisions. But for the most part, just keep at it. You know, every day, try to play a little bit every day, and it'll pay off.